The glossy surface of my Mont Blanc pen caught the afternoon sunlight as I signed the final acquisition papers. Through my office window, 60 stories above Manhattan, I could see the skyline that had witnessed my transformation. My secretary's voice crackled through the intercom. "Mrs. Kincaid, the new mailroom employees are ready for orientation." I allowed myself a small smile. "Send them in, Claire." The door opened, and there they stood, my ex-husband Nathan and his former mistress, now wife, Victoria. The same couple who had celebrated his VP promotion at Le Bernardin 3 years ago, while I sat home preparing his favorite dinner. Life has a peculiar way of rearranging the pieces on its chessboard. If you want to know how I turned betrayal into a billion-dollar empire, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. This story might just change your life. My name is Alexandra Kincaid, and this is the story of how I built an empire from the ashes of betrayal. But let me take you back to where it all began, when I was still Alex Mitchell, a talented marketing executive living in her husband's shadow. It was a crisp September evening when my world shifted on its axis. I had spent the afternoon in a strategy meeting, outlining plans to revolutionize our agency's digital approach. My colleagues were resistant to change, stuck in their traditional methods. If only I had known then that their resistance would become the catalyst for my future success. "Your husband's celebration dinner must have been wonderful last night," my assistant mentioned as she handed me my afternoon coffee. I paused, the cup halfway to my lips. "What celebration?" The words fell from my mouth before I could stop them. Her face paled. "Oh, I thought. I saw him at Le Bernardin with—" I'm sure it was a business dinner. But I knew better. 15 years of marriage teaches you to read between the lines. Nathan had told me he was in Chicago for a client meeting. I set down my coffee, opened my laptop, and pulled up our joint credit card statement. There it was, a dinner for two. At Le Bernardin, a room at the Plaza, and a receipt from Cartier. My husband was many things, but subtle wasn't one of them. That evening, instead of confronting him, I did something different. I logged into his email. Years ago, he'd asked me to help him set up his accounts and never change the password. Technology had never been his strong suit. There they were, hundreds of emails between him and Victoria Pierce, his new junior executive. The latest one sent just hours ago. "Last night was perfect. Can't wait to tell everyone about my promotion." And us. I closed the laptop and walked to our home office. Behind the vintage wine collection Nathan was so proud of, I kept a folder of every business plan I'd ever created, every innovation proposal that had been shot down by my conservative superiors. I spread them across the mahogany desk, my roadmap to independence, though I hadn't known it at the time. My phone buzzed. A text from Nathan. "Working late again. Don't wait up." I texted back a simple, "Okay," then opened my banking app. The inheritance from my grandmother had been sitting untouched for years. Nathan had always insisted we didn't need it, that his income was enough for both of us. For once, I was grateful for his pride. The next morning, I arrived at work early. Before anyone else arrived, I emailed my resignation letter to HR. 9 a.m., I had signed a lease on a small office space in Brooklyn. By noon, I had registered my own digital marketing consultancy. And by 5 p.m., I had secured my first client, the same startup that my agency had deemed too small to bother with. Nathan came home that evening, lipstick on his collar and guilt in his eyes. He found me in the kitchen, cooking dinner as usual. "How was Chicago?" I asked, watching him freeze in the doorway. The lie came smoothly. "Productive. Client loved our pitch." I nodded, stirring the pasta sauce. "That's nice. I'm sure Victoria was very convincing." The color drained from his face. "Alex, I can explain." But I just smiled, plated his dinner, and walked upstairs to our bedroom. Behind me, I heard him call out, "Where are you going?" I paused on the stairs, looking back at the man I had loved for 15 years, to build something of my own. What happened next would reshape not just my life, but the entire digital marketing landscape in New York. The story of how I turned a small consultancy into the company that would eventually acquire my ex-husband's firm. How I handled the divorce proceedings while secretly poaching his biggest clients, and how I transformed betrayal into the motivation that built my billion-dollar empire. Sometimes the best revenge isn't serving it cold. It's serving it with a corner office view. The morning sun painted long shadows across my makeshift office in Brooklyn. 3 computer screens cluttered my secondhand desk, each displaying a different aspect of my growing enterprise. My phone buzzed incessantly, Nathan's 20th call of the morning. I smiled, remembering the look on his face when the divorce papers arrived at his office via courier yesterday afternoon. My tiny office might have been a far cry from the sleek Manhattan high-rise I'd left behind, but it had something more valuable: potential. The startup I'd snagged as my first client had already referred me to 2 others. Word was spreading about the new digital marketing consultancy that actually delivered results. A knock at my door interrupted my thoughts. "Come in," I called, expecting my assistant Sarah, a recent graduate I'd hired last week. Instead, Marcus Chen walked in, carrying a manila envelope and wearing an expression that spelled opportunity. "Hello, Alexandra," he said, settling into the chair across from me. Or should I say, the mastermind behind Vertex Digital's latest campaign? Marcus had been Nathan's biggest client at Richardson & Walsh, the agency where we'd both worked. The agency Nathan still thought was his stepping stone to partnership. I leaned back in my chair, keeping my expression neutral. "I'm not sure what you mean, Marcus." He slid the envelope across my desk. Inside were printouts of the viral campaign I'd launched anonymously for a small tech startup. The same campaign that had been making waves in the industry for the past week. "Only one person I know combines behavioral psychology with digital marketing this way," he said, tapping the papers. "I recognized your signature style. The question is, why are you hiding behind a small Brooklyn consultancy when you could be doing this on a much bigger scale?" I studied Marcus carefully. In 15 years of marriage to Nathan, I'd learned to read people's true intentions. Marcus wasn't here to expose me. He was here to make a deal. "What exactly are you proposing?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Marcus Chen didn't make social calls, especially not to Brooklyn. "My company is launching a new division. We need someone who understands where digital marketing is heading, not where it's been. Someone innovative, fearless." He paused, letting his words sink in. "Someone like you." I glanced at my phone, another missed call from Nathan. "And what about your existing agency, Richardson & Walsh?" Marcus's smile was razor sharp. "Let's just say I'm not impressed with their recent leadership changes." My hand instinctively went to the folder hidden in my desk drawer, the one containing evidence of Nathan's creative accounting with client budgets. Evidence I'd discovered while handling our household finances, which he'd always been too busy to manage. "I have a counter-proposal," I said, pulling out my laptop. "Instead of joining your new division, how about we create something together? A joint venture with resources that could rival any agency in Manhattan." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." For the next hour, I outlined my vision. Not just for a digital marketing agency, but for a complete transformation of how businesses connect with their audiences. By the time Marcus left my office, we had the framework for what would become Nova Digital Solutions, a company that would revolutionize the industry. That evening, as I was finalizing the paperwork, Sarah rushed in. "Alex, you need to see this." She turned her tablet toward me. On the screen was an industry news article. "Richardson and Walsh announces leadership changes. Nathan Mitchell promoted to partner." I felt a strange sense of calm. "Sarah, remember that list of potential clients I asked you to research? Move them to priority status. And call Marcus. Tell him we're accelerating our timeline. The next few weeks passed in a blur of meetings, pitches, and late-night strategy sessions. Nova Digital Solutions took shape faster than even I had anticipated. Marcus's resources combined with my innovation created something formidable. We secured 5 major clients in our first month, 3 of them former Richardson and Walsh accounts. I was reviewing our latest campaign when my lawyer, Rebecca, called. "Alex, Nathan's contesting the divorce terms. He's claiming you used insider knowledge to steal clients." I opened my email and forwarded her a series of documents. "Send him these. They detail every questionable financial decision he made while handling client accounts. Remind him that as his wife, I was legally privy to that information. Ask him if he really wants the board investigating his creative bookkeeping." Rebecca's laugh was appreciative. "You've been planning this for a while, haven't you? Let's just say I learned from the best how to keep receipts." I ended the call and walked to my office window. From here, I could see the Manhattan skyline, where right now Nathan was probably celebrating his promotion with Victoria, thinking he'd won. My phone chimed with a text from Marcus. "Meeting with Blackwood Industries confirmed. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Blackwood was Richardson and Walsh's biggest client, accounting for 30% of their revenue. Nathan had courted them for years, taking Victoria to client dinners, charging extravagant meals to the company card while I stayed home, unknowingly financing their affair. The next morning, I walked into Blackwood's headquarters wearing the Chanel suit I'd bought, with my first Nova Digital paycheck. In the elevator, my phone buzzed with a text from Nathan. "We need to talk. The board has questions about those accounts." I stepped into the conference room where James Blackwood himself waited. "Mrs. Mitchell, or should I say Ms. Kincaid?" he said, using my grandmother's maiden name, which I'd reclaimed. "Ms. Kincaid, yes," I confirmed, setting up my presentation. "Shall we discuss the future of digital marketing?" 2 hours later, I walked out with a signed contract. Nova Digital would handle all of Blackwood's digital marketing, effective immediately. By the time I reached my office, industry news alerts were already buzzing about Richardson and Walsh losing their biggest client. Sarah met me at the door. "Nathan's called 6 times, and Victoria sent an email demanding to know what you're doing." I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop, and began typing an email to Richardson and Walsh's board of directors. Attached were files documenting every irregular transaction Nathan had authorized over the past 5 years, along with proof of personal expenses he'd charged to client accounts, including a certain dinner at Le Bernardin and a room at the Plaza. "Sarah, please call Marcus. Tell him it's time to proceed with Phase 2. I hit send on the email and leaned back in my chair. By this time tomorrow, Nathan's partnership would be the least of his concerns. Marcus arrived within the hour, carrying a bottle of champagne. "I just heard from my contact at Richardson and Walsh. The board called an emergency meeting. Apparently, some interesting financial documents came to light." I took the glass he offered. "How unfortunate for them." "You know," he said, studying me over his champagne, "when we started this venture, I thought you were just another promising entrepreneur. But you're something else entirely, aren't you?" I smiled, remembering all the nights I'd spent piecing together Nathan's deception, tracking his lies through bank statements and credit card bills. I just learned from experience that the devil is in the details. My phone lit up with an incoming call. Nathan again. "This time," I answered. "What have you done?" His voice shook with rage. "I built something of my own," I replied calmly. "Just like I said I would. How's the partnership going?" "The board is suspending me pending an investigation. They're freezing all my accounts." "That's unfortunate," I said, echoing his words from countless client dinners where he'd dismissed my ideas. "You might want to lawyer up. I hear Victoria's father has an excellent legal team." I ended the call and turned to Marcus. "Ready to make an offer they can't refuse?" He grinned, already pulling out the acquisition paperwork we'd prepared. Richardson and Walsh won't survive this scandal. Their stock will plummet once this hits the news. We can buy them for cents on the dollar. I signed the papers with my Mont Blanc pen, a gift to myself to replace the one Nathan had given Victoria. Make sure the press release emphasizes Nova Digital's commitment to ethical business practices. Oh, and Marcus, let's keep the mailroom staff. I hear there might be some openings soon. That night, I stood in my new office, watching the city. Lights flicker to life. My phone had finally stopped buzzing with calls from Nathan. Instead, it lit up with industry news alerts. Richardson and Walsh rocked by financial scandal. Rising star agency Nova Digital poised for major acquisition. Digital marketing's new power player, Alexandra Kincaid's meteoric rise. I poured myself a glass of champagne, remembering all the times I'd stayed quiet in meetings, all the ideas I'd watched Nathan take credit for, all the nights I'd waited up while he worked late with Victoria. Every slight, every dismissal, every betrayal had led to this moment. Tomorrow, I would begin the process of absorbing Richardson and Walsh into Nova Digital. Nathan and Victoria would learn about their new positions in the mailroom through HR, just as I'd learned about their affair through office gossip. But tonight, I would celebrate not the revenge, but the revolution, the birth of something bigger than any betrayal. The sun had set on Nathan's world of corner offices and liquid lunches. A new day was dawning in digital marketing, and this time, I was writing the rules. The morning headlines scrolled across my desktop screen. Nova Digital completes historic acquisition of Richardson and Walsh. I closed my laptop, turning to face the floor-to-ceiling windows of my new executive suite. 60 floors below, Manhattan stirred to life, unaware that its marketing landscape had shifted dramatically overnight. My intercom buzzed. Ms. Kincaid, the transition team is ready in the main conference room. Sarah's voice carried a note of excitement she couldn't quite suppress. Today would mark the first official meeting of the merged companies, and everyone knew what that meant. The Richardson and Walsh boardroom felt different now. Gone were the stuffy leather chairs and dated oak paneling. In their place stood sleek modern furniture and glass walls that spoke of transparency, both literal and metaphorical. As I walked in, conversations hushed. 50 pairs of eyes followed my movement to the head of the table. Marcus stood to my right, tablet in hand. Shall we begin the new employee assignments? The glint in his eye told me he was enjoying this as much as I was. I nodded, taking my seat at the position Nathan had coveted for so many years. As you know, I addressed the room, Nova Digital believes in placing talent where it can be most effective. Some of you will find your roles shifting significantly. My gaze swept the room, landing briefly on Victoria, who sat rigid in her chair, her designer outfit a stark contrast to the fear in her eyes. Sarah began distributing tablets containing the new organizational charts. The room filled with murmurs as people found their names, or didn't. Victoria's face went pale as she scrolled through the document. Nathan, seated as far from her as possible, gripped his tablet so hard his knuckles went white. "Mrs. Mitchell, excuse me, Ms. Pierce," I said, savoring the way Victoria flinched at her newly married name. "You'll find your new position listed under auxiliary services. We believe your particular talents will be better utilized in our mailroom division." Victoria shot to her feet. "This is ridiculous. I have a master's degree from Columbia. And now you'll have an intimate understanding of our internal communication systems," I replied smoothly. "Nathan will be joining you there, of course. We wouldn't want to separate such a devoted couple." Nathan stood up so quickly his chair toppled backward. "You can't do this. I built half these client relationships." "You mean the relationships you cultivated over expense account dinners? The ones you charged to client budgets?" I pulled up a spreadsheet on the main screen. "Like this dinner at Le Bernardin? Or perhaps this hotel room at the Plaza?" Each item highlighted in damning yellow. I'm sure the board found those expenses particularly interesting during their investigation. The room had gone deadly quiet. Everyone knew about Nathan and Victoria's affair. It had been office gossip for months, but seeing the evidence displayed so clinically was something else entirely. Your choices are simple, I continued. Accept your new positions, or face fraud charges for misappropriation of client funds. I'm sure Victoria's father would be fascinated to learn how his daughter's romance was financed. Victoria sank back into her chair, the fight draining from her face. Nathan remained standing, his jaw working silently. I could almost see the wheels turning in his head, calculating angles, looking for leverage that no longer existed. Oh, and Nathan? I added, almost as an afterthought. The Cartier receipt? Not tax-deductible as a business expense, even if you were entertaining a potential employee. Several people failed to suppress their snickers. Victoria's hand flew to the diamond bracelet on her wrist, the one Nathan had bought her the night of his promotion celebration. Marcus cleared his throat. If there are no other questions about the reorganization, let's move on to our new corporate structure. He began outlining Nova Digital's innovative approach to digital marketing, but I barely heard him. I was watching Nathan and Victoria, seated apart, avoiding each other's eyes. Amazing how quickly love could turn to resentment when the glamour was stripped away. Later that afternoon, I stood in my office, watching Nathan and Victoria being escorted to the mailroom for orientation. Their designer clothes and luxury accessories looked absurdly out of place in the fluorescent-lit basement. Through the security feed, I could see them arguing in harsh whispers, blame flowing both ways. Sarah entered with a stack of reports. The press is having a field day with the merger. They're calling it the marketing coup of the decade. She hesitated, then added, Nathan's been trying to schedule a meeting with you. Let me guess, he wants to explain everything? I turned from the window, remembering all the explanations I'd heard over 15 years of marriage. The late text nights, the missed anniversaries, the lipstick stains he'd claimed came from greeting clients. He says he can prove the expenses were legitimate business costs. Sarah's tone made it clear what she thought of that. I sat down at my desk, pulling up the company's new organizational chart. Send him up in an hour, and Sarah, have facilities remove the visitor chairs from my office. Nathan arrived exactly 60 minutes later, his arrogance somewhat diminished by the mailroom uniform he now wore. He stood in my doorway, clearly thrown off by the lack of seating options. Feel familiar? I asked, not looking up from my work. Standing in doorways, watching someone you thought you knew? That got his attention. How many times had I stood in our kitchen doorway, watching him lie about working late? Alex, be reasonable, he started, using the tone that had once made me doubt my own judgment. We both know I brought in those accounts. The board respects me. Give me back my position, and we can put this behind us. I finally looked up. Like you put our marriage behind you? Or did you forget that part while you were building relationships with Victoria? He had the grace to flush. That was a mistake. I got carried away with the promotion, the pressure. The room service, the jewelry, the weekend trips, charged to client accounts? I pulled up the spreadsheet again. Tell me, Nathan, was it the pressure that made you forge approval signatures? Or was that just convenience? I can explain. You always could. I cut him off. You explained the late nights, the missed dinners, the credit card charges. You explained why my ideas weren't good enough for client presentations, why Victoria's insights were more current. You explained everything except the truth. He took a step forward, desperation creeping into his voice. Alex, please. You know how this business works. Everyone does it. No, Nathan, everyone doesn't. I stood up, enjoying how he instinctively stepped back. Everyone doesn't lie to their spouse while embezzling from their clients. Everyone doesn't charge their affairs to company accounts. And everyone certainly doesn't assume they'll get away with it forever. What do you want? He finally asked, defeat creeping into his voice. Money? A public apology? I laughed, and the sound made him flinch. What I want, Nathan, is for you to go back to the mailroom. Your shift started 10 minutes ago, and we both know how important punctuality is in this business. As he turned to leave, I added, "Oh, and Nathan, Victoria filed for a transfer to our West Coast office this morning. Apparently, the mailroom romance isn't quite as exciting as the executive suite affair." The door closed behind him with a satisfying click. I turned back to my window, watching the city that had witnessed my transformation. Below, I could see Victoria entering a taxi, her mailroom uniform incongruous with her Louboutin heels. Some people never learned. Sarah's voice came through the intercom. "Ms. Kincaid, the Blackwood team is here for the strategy presentation." I smoothed my jacket and gathered my materials. Time to show the industry what real innovation looked like. After all, success wasn't just about getting even. It was about getting ahead. The conference room was packed when I entered. James Blackwood sat at the center, flanked by his executive team. These were the people who had once listened to Nathan's outdated ideas, who had paid for his expensive dinners with Victoria. Now they would see what real digital marketing could do. As I began my presentation, I caught a glimpse of Nathan through the glass walls, pushing his mail cart past the conference room. He paused briefly, watching as I commanded the attention of his former clients. I met his eyes for a moment, seeing the final realization dawn. He hadn't just lost his wife and his position. He had underestimated the woman who would reshape the entire industry. The meeting ran long, but productively. By the time the Blackwood team left, we had approval for 3 major campaigns and a significant budget increase. Sarah came in to clear the coffee cups, grinning. I heard Victoria's transfer was approved. She leaves for Seattle next week. I nodded, already focusing on our next acquisition target. Make sure Nathan's schedule has him delivering mail to the legal department when she clears out her locker. It seems only fair he should witness the end of another relationship. That evening, as the office emptied, I took a moment to appreciate the view from my new office. The city lights sparkled like the diamonds Nathan had bought for Victoria. But unlike their relationship, these lights would endure. I picked up my Mont Blanc pen, not the one Nathan had given me, but the one I'd bought myself to sign the acquisition papers, and began outlining our next phase of expansion. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Board dinner tomorrow to celebrate the merger." Le Bernardin? I smiled, remembering a different dinner at that restaurant, one I hadn't been invited to. "No," I typed back. "I have a better idea. Let's try that new place in Brooklyn. I hear their humble pie is excellent." Autumn painted Central Park in shades of gold and crimson as I reviewed the quarterly reports in my penthouse office. Nova Digital had exceeded every projection, our innovative campaigns reshaping how Fortune 500 companies approach digital marketing. But success, I'd learned, bred both opportunity and opposition. My intercom chimed. "Ms. Kincaid?" Sarah's voice carried an unusual edge. "Gregory Walsh is here to see you." I straightened in my chair, surprised. Gregory Walsh, the founding partner of what was once Richardson and Walsh, had retired to the Cayman Islands long before my acquisition of his firm. His unexpected appearance could only mean one thing: trouble. "Send him in." I stood as the door opened, taking in the man who had once been Nathan's mentor. Age hadn't diminished Gregory's commanding presence, though his tan suggested he'd been enjoying his retirement thoroughly. "Alexandra?" He smiled, extending his hand. Or should I say, the woman who turned my life's work into a digital powerhouse. I gestured to a chair. "I doubt you left the beach just to compliment my business. Acumen, Gregory." He chuckled, settling into the leather seat. "Direct as ever." "Very well. I've been watching what you've done with my company. Impressive doesn't begin to cover it. But I'm here because of Nathan." Of course he was. Nathan had been Gregory's protege, the son he'd never had. Nathan is exactly where his actions placed him, I said firmly. In the mailroom, yes. Quite the fall from grace. Gregory leaned forward. He came to see me in Cayman last week. Told me everything. The affair, the creative accounting, the spectacular way you orchestrated his downfall. I kept my expression neutral. If you're here to plead his case... Oh no, Gregory cut in, surprising me. I'm here to thank you. That wasn't what I'd expected. Thank me? Alexandra, I built that company from nothing. Watched it grow, adapt, succeed. Then I handed it over to people I trusted, people like Nathan, and went off to enjoy my retirement. His expression hardened. Imagine my disappointment when I discovered they were running it into the ground, clinging to outdated methods while embezzling from client accounts. I studied him carefully. You knew about the financial irregularities? I had suspicions, but proving them would have meant coming out of retirement, facing ugly truths about people I'd trusted. He smiled. Then you came along and did all the hard work for me. And better yet, you've turned the company into something remarkable. So why are you really here, Gregory? He reached into his briefcase, pulling out a folder. Because I still own 15% of the company's shares. Shares that, combined with certain other holdings, could create complications for your next expansion phase. Ah, there it was. I'd wondered when someone would notice the potential vulnerability in our corporate structure. What exactly are you proposing? A partnership, your vision, my experience, and connections. Together, we could take Nova Digital global. He slid the folder across my desk. I've already drawn up the preliminary paperwork. I didn't touch the folder. And Nathan? Is this his attempt at regaining control? Gregory laughed outright. Nathan's not getting anywhere near this company again. No, this is purely business. I want back in the game, and you're the most exciting player I've seen in decades. Before I could respond, Sarah buzzed again. Ms. Kincaid, Mr. Chen says it's urgent. Marcus burst in, tablet in hand. Alex, we have a situation. Victoria's father just... Oh. He stopped short, seeing Gregory. Mr. Walsh, I didn't know you were in town. Marcus, Gregory nodded. Still playing both sides of every deal? I cut in before Marcus could respond. What's the situation with Victoria's father? Marcus glanced at Gregory, then back to me. He's making a play for our West Coast operations, using Victoria's position there to gather inside information. They've already approached 3 of our major clients. I felt a smile spread across my face. Finally, a worthy challenge. Sarah, I called out. Get me the Blackwood file and call legal. And Gregory, your timing is impeccable. How would you like to help me teach Victoria's family a lesson about corporate loyalty? The next few hours were a blur of strategy sessions and legal consultations. Gregory's insights proved invaluable. He'd dealt with Victoria's father before and knew his weaknesses. By sunset, we had a counter-offensive prepared that would make the Pierce family regret ever crossing Nova Digital. You know, Gregory mused as we reviewed the final plans. Nathan never mentioned how brilliant you were at corporate strategy, though I suppose that was part of his problem. Nathan saw what he wanted to see, I replied, signing the last of the documents. An accessory to his success story, not a potential rival. His loss, my gain. Gregory raised his coffee cup in a mock toast. To new partnerships? I clinked my cup against his. To teaching old dogs new tricks. Later that evening, as I was preparing to leave, Sarah brought in one last piece of news. Victoria's father is hosting a charity gala next month. He's invited every major player in digital marketing, except us. I smiled, remembering similar exclusions from country club events and charity boards when I was Nathan's wife. Book. Me a table. The best one in the house. But they're not selling tickets to Nova Digital employees, Sarah protested. No, I agreed. But I'm sure they'll sell one to Gregory Walsh and his guests. After all, he's practically digital marketing. Royalty. The next few weeks passed in a whirlwind of preparation. Gregory proved to be an invaluable ally, his old-school connections complementing my innovative approaches perfectly. Together, we crafted a strategy that would not only protect Nova Digital, but propel it into the global market. The night of the gala arrived crisp and clear. I chose a Valentino gown in deep crimson, the color of both warning and victory. Gregory met me at the entrance to the plaza, offering his arm with old-world charm. Ready to crash another party? He asked, eyes twinkling. Always. We swept into the ballroom, drawing every eye. Victoria, standing with her father near the stage, nearly dropped her champagne. "Daddy," I heard her hiss, "what are they doing?" "Here?" But Mr. Pierce was already hurrying over, hand extended toward Gregory. "Greg, I had no idea you were back in town." "James," Gregory smiled coldly, "I believe you know my new business partner, Alexandra Kincaid." The color drained from Pierce's face as understanding dawned. Before he could respond, Gregory continued, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "We were just discussing Nova Digital's expansion into Asia. The Pierce family has some interest there, don't they? Though I hear they're having some regulatory issues." I watched Pierce's expression shift from shock to fear. Gregory hadn't just been sunbathing in the Caymans, he'd been gathering intelligence on every major player in the industry. The evening that followed was a masterclass in corporate warfare. Every conversation, every seemingly casual remark from Gregory revealed another piece of our strategy. By the time Victoria fled to the powder room in tears, her father's empire was effectively neutralized. "I have to admit," Gregory said as we left the gala, "watching you work is a thing of beauty. You've elevated revenge to an art form." I shook my head. This isn't about revenge anymore. It's about building something that will last. The next morning, I arrived at the office early. Nathan was already there, sorting mail in the basement. He looked up as I passed, his expression unreadable. "I heard about last night," he said quietly, "about Gregory joining Nova Digital. Worried about your mentor choosing your ex-wife over you?" I couldn't resist asking. "No," he surprised me by saying, "just finally understanding what I lost. Not the company or the position, but you, your vision, your brilliance." He hefted his mail cart. I really was a fool, wasn't I? I studied him for a moment, seeing not the man who had betrayed me, but the ambitious young executive I'd fallen in love with so long ago. "Yes," I said simply. "You were." As I rode the elevator to my office, I thought about how far I'd come. From that night, I discovered Nathan's betrayal. Success wasn't just about proving him wrong. It was about proving myself right, about creating something bigger than revenge, something that would outlast all the petty betrayals and power plays. Sarah met me with the morning briefings. The Asian market reports are in, and Gregory's lawyers have finished reviewing the global expansion contracts. I took the files, turning to look out at the city I'd conquered. "Schedule a board meeting for tomorrow. It's time to show the world what Nova Digital can really do." The sun rose over Manhattan, painting the sky in shades of possibility. In the mailroom far below, Nathan sorted letters and packages, while somewhere on the West Coast, Victoria was learning just how expensive betrayal could be. But up here, in my tower of glass and steel, I was building an empire that would change the face of digital marketing forever. And this was just the beginning. The Singapore skyline glittered through the windows of my executive suite at Marina Bay Sands. Wealth, power, and ambition reached toward the stars in towers of glass and steel, much like the empire I'd built from the ashes of betrayal. The digital displays on my desk showed 3 different time zones: New York, London, and Singapore. Nova Digital's new power centers. The Asian market projections exceeded our estimates by 30%, Marcus announced, spreading holographic data charts across the smart table. The merger with Tang Digital is practically guaranteed. I studied the numbers, remembering a time when Nathan had dismissed Asian markets as too volatile. Now, those same markets were about to make Nova Digital the first truly global digital marketing force. My phone buzzed, a message from Gregory. Board approval confirmed. Tang family signs tomorrow. A knock at the door interrupted my reply. Sarah entered, her usual efficiency tinged with concern. Ms. Kincaid, there's something you need to see. She handed me her tablet, open to an industry news site. The headline made my blood freeze. Former Richardson and Walsh partner returns? Nathan Mitchell joins Pierce Global as Chief Innovation Officer. Apparently, Sarah continued, Victoria's father decided to fight fire with fire. Nathan's leading their new digital division. I set down the tablet, my mind already racing through scenarios and countermoves. When did this happen? The announcement went live an hour ago. They're holding a press conference at their Hong Kong office tomorrow. Marcus leaned forward, studying my expression. Should we be worried? I smiled, remembering Nathan's pathetic attempts at innovation during our marriage. No, but Pierce Global should be. Sarah cleared her throat. There's more. Victoria's been named creative director. They're presenting themselves as the dream team that built Richardson and Walsh's success. Success they had to embezzle to maintain, I reminded her, standing to face the Singapore night. Get me everything on Pierce Global's current client list, especially any accounts Nathan handled at Richardson and Walsh. And call Gregory. I want to know if any of our Asian partners have connections to the Pierce family. The next 24 hours were a whirlwind of strategic planning. Gregory's intelligence network proved invaluable once again, revealing that Pierce Global had overextended itself trying to enter the Asian market. They were betting everything on Nathan's supposed expertise and Victoria's family connections. I was reviewing their vulnerabilities when my private line rang, a number I hadn't seen in months. Nathan. Calling to gloat? I answered, keeping my voice neutral. Alexandra. He sounded different, more confident than he had in the mailroom. I thought you should hear it from me personally. I'm back in the game. Leading digital innovation for Pierce Global? Quite a step up from sorting mail. He chuckled, the sound grating on my nerves. You taught me something important, Alex. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find your true potential. And did you find that potential in Victoria's father's company or just in his daughter's bed? Always so quick to judge. His tone hardened. But this time, I'm not the underdog. Pierce Global has resources you can't imagine. Asian markets respect tradition, family connections. They'll choose us over your American innovation every time. I laughed then, genuinely amused. Nathan, what makes you think I came to Singapore? Without connections of my own? Before he could respond, Sarah burst in. Ms. Kincaid, the Tang family is here. Early. Got to go, I told Nathan sweetly. Some of us have an empire to run. I ended the call and straightened my jacket. The Tang family was Asian marketing royalty, their influence stretching back generations. Their early arrival wasn't an accident. It was a test. Madame Tang rose as I entered the conference room, her ageless face revealing nothing. Ms. Kincaid, we heard some interesting news about your former husband. Nathan? I smiled, taking my seat. Yes, he's found a new position, one better suited to his abilities. Pierce Global is claiming they'll revolutionize digital marketing in Asia, her son Michael Tang added. They're offering our clients significant incentives to switch. I opened my laptop, bringing up a series of projections. Tell me, Madame. Tang, do you know why I started Nova Digital? She studied me carefully. To prove something to a man who underestimated you? No. I met her gaze steadily. To build something that would outlast any individual's ambition, something that would change not just how we market, but how we connect across cultures and continents. For the next hour, I outlined my vision for the future of digital marketing in Asia. Not Pierce Global's approach of buying influence and trading on family names, but a true fusion of Eastern tradition and Western innovation. By the time I finished, Madame Tang was leaning forward, her usual reserve forgotten. "You understand something Nathan Mitchell never will," she said finally. "True power isn't about connections or tradition. It's about vision." We signed the merger agreement then and there, ahead of schedule. As the Tang family left, Michael lingered behind. "Pierce Global won't take this line down. They've staked everything on controlling the Asian market." "Let them try," I replied, already planning our next move. That evening, as I prepared for the merger announcement, Sarah brought in a gift that had been delivered to the office. Inside the expensive packaging was a single red rose and a note in Nathan's handwriting. "Congratulations on the Tang merger. Ready for round 2? I dropped the rose in the shredder, watching it turn to confetti. Nathan had learned nothing in the mailroom after all. He still thought this was a game to be won, not a legacy to be built. My phone buzzed with a message. From Gregory. "Pierce Global's making moves. Victoria's father is calling in favors, trying to block our expansion permits." I smiled, remembering all the country club dinners where Victoria's father had dismissed me as Nathan's little wife. Now he was about to learn what that little wife could do. "Sarah," I called out, "get me the files on Pierce Global's regulatory compliance." Something tells me they've been cutting corners in their rush to compete. The next morning, Singapore's financial district was buzzing with news. Pierce Global's expansion permits had been suspended pending investigation. Anonymous tips had revealed concerning patterns in their Asian operations. Nathan's dream comeback was turning into a nightmare. "Victoria's father is furious," Marcus reported, bringing me my morning coffee. "He's threatening to sue for corporate espionage." "With what evidence?" I asked, reviewing the latest market reports. "We simply ensured regulatory bodies had access to publicly available information. It's not our fault if Pierce Global's paperwork wasn't in order." My phone lit, up with another call from Nathan. This time, I let it go to voicemail. He'd learned soon enough that his round 2 was already over. Sarah entered with a stack of newspapers. "The Asian press is calling it the fall of the Pierce Empire. Their stock is down 30%. Make sure our PR team emphasizes Nova. Digital's commitment to regulatory compliance," I instructed, "and send a gift basket to the Pierce family, something appropriate for difficult times." As the sun set over Singapore, I stood at my window watching the city transform from business hub to glittering nightscape. Somewhere in Hong Kong, Nathan and Victoria were watching their dreams of Asian dominance crumble. But this wasn't about them anymore. It wasn't even about revenge. My empire had grown beyond personal vendettas and old betrayals. Nova Digital was reshaping how the world connected, one innovation at a time. And if Nathan and the Pierce family couldn't keep up, well, there was always room in the mailroom. A message from Madame Tang appeared on my phone. "Dinner tomorrow? We should discuss the future." Attached was a photo of her family's private island. I smiled, remembering Nathan's words about Asian respect for tradition. He'd never understood. That true tradition wasn't about maintaining the past. It was about building a bridge to the future. "Sarah," I called out, "clear my schedule for tomorrow evening and send a message to our development team. It's time to show the world what real digital innovation looks like." The Singapore night sparkled with possibility. In New York, London, and now Asia, Nova Digital was becoming more than a company. It was becoming a legend. And legends, unlike marriages or corporate takeovers, had a way of lasting forever. The private jet banked smoothly over Dubai's artificial islands, a testament to human ambition rising from desert sands. Rather fitting, I thought, considering what awaited me below. My tablet displayed the morning's headlines. Tech giant Datasphere announces merger talks with Pierce Global. Beneath that, Nathan Mitchell, named Chief Strategy Officer of Combined Ventures. "They're calling it a defensive merger," Marcus said from across the aisle, his face illuminated by his laptop screen. Datasphere's CEO claims it's about combining resources to compete in the digital age. I set down my tablet, watching the Dubai coastline sparkle. James Pierce is getting desperate. First Hong Kong, now this. He's trying to save his company by hiding it inside a bigger one. Sarah appeared from the jet's communications center, her expression tense. "Gregory's intel just came in. Datasphere's board hasn't officially approved the merger yet. They're waiting for something." "Or someone," I smiled, knowing exactly what was coming. "How long until we land?" 20 minutes, Sarah checked her watch. "The Datasphere board members are already gathered at the Burj Al Arab. Your suite is ready." I nodded, remembering another high-stakes meeting in another luxury hotel years ago when Nathan had dismissed my concerns about digital innovation. Now, he was frantically trying to prove his relevance in a world that had evolved beyond his understanding. The Burj Al Arab's distinctive sail-shaped silhouette dominated the coastline as our car approached. Inside, the opulence was almost overwhelming, a deliberate choice by Datasphere's CEO, no doubt. Show the potential partners how successful you are, even as your market share crumbles. Richard Chen, Datasphere's aging CEO, greeted me in the private elevator. "Alexandra Kincaid, I was wondering when you'd arrive." "Richard." I kept my tone pleasant. "Interesting choice, merging with Pierce Global, especially given their recent difficulties in Asia." He had the grace to look uncomfortable. The digital landscape is changing. Traditional companies need to adapt. "Is that what Nathan told you? That Pierce Global understands adaptation?" The elevator doors opened directly into the penthouse boardroom. "Or did he just promise you access to markets that no longer want him?" The Datasphere board members rose as I entered, their expressions a mix of curiosity and concern. They'd all read about how I'd transformed Nova Digital from a small consultancy into a global powerhouse. They'd also read about what happened to those who stood in my way. "Mrs. Kincaid," Datasphere's board chairman began. "Ms. I corrected, smoothly, taking my seat at the table. "Now, shall we discuss why you really called me here?" For the next hour, I laid out exactly why merging with Pierce Global would be Datasphere's last mistake. Their technology was outdated, their approach to digital marketing stuck in the past. Nathan's promises of innovation were based on concepts Nova Digital had already moved beyond. "But the Asian markets," one board member protested. "Pierce Global has established connections." "Had connections," I interrupted, bringing up real-time market data on the room's displays. Before their regulatory issues, before the Tang family chose Nova Digital, before their stock dropped 40%. Richard Chen shifted uncomfortably. Nathan Mitchell assures us. Nathan Mitchell assured his wife he was faithful for 15 years. I cut in, enjoying how the room fell silent. His assurances, like his business strategy, tend to be self-serving fiction. I stood, smoothing my Armani suit. "I'll leave you with two options. One, proceed with your merger with Pierce Global, watch your market value plummet, and become another casualty of Nathan's desperation. Or two, I placed a folder on the table. Accept Nova Digital's tender offer." The chairman opened the folder, his eyes widening at the numbers. "This is generous?" I smiled. "Consider it an investment in your future. Unlike Pierce Global, we believe in building things up, not tearing them down. As my team and..." I left the Burj Al Arab, Sarah handed me her tablet. "Nathan's trying to reach you. Says it's urgent." Of course it was. I'd just demolished his last chance at relevance in the digital marketing world. Again. I took the call in my suite, pouring myself a glass of champagne. "Hello, Nathan. How's Dubai this time of year?" "You bitch." His voice shook with rage. "You couldn't let me have this one thing, could you? Had to swoop in and destroy everything, just like always." "Destroy?" I laughed. "Nathan, I'm saving Datasphere from your particular brand of destruction. Remember what happened to Richardson and Walsh? To Pierce Global's Asian division?" "This was my chance," he hissed. "My opportunity to prove—" "That you've learned nothing?" I interrupted. "That you're still the same man who thought he could hide an affair with company money? Who believed connections mattered more than innovation?" Silence stretched between us, heavy with years of history and betrayal. Finally, Nathan spoke again, his voice different. Defeated. "What do you want from me, Alex?" "Want?" I watched. The Dubai sunset paint the sky in shades of amber and gold. "I don't want anything from you, Nathan. That's what you never understood. This isn't about you anymore. It hasn't been for a long time." After I hung up, Sarah entered with the latest updates. Datasphere's board just voted. They're accepting our offer. And Pierce Global? Their stock is in free fall. Victoria's father is stepping down as CEO. There's talk of breaking up the company. I nodded, remembering James Pierce's condescending smile at countless charity events. "Make sure our HR department is ready. I want to offer positions to any Pierce Global employees who meet our standards." "Even Victoria?" "Especially Victoria." I smiled. The Hong Kong mailroom could use some fresh talent. Later that evening, as I prepared for the press conference announcing the Datasphere acquisition, Marcus brought in an interesting piece of intelligence. You'll never guess who just purchased a significant block of Pierce Global's devalued shares. "Gregory Walsh," I said without looking up from my notes. Marcus grinned. "How did you know?" "Because I asked him to." I met his surprised look. Nathan thought he understood power plays. He never realized the real game was 3 moves ahead. The press conference was a masterpiece of corporate theater. I announced not just the Datasphere acquisition, but a complete restructuring of the digital marketing landscape. Nova Digital would absorb the best parts of Pierce Global, salvaged by Gregory's share purchase, while transforming Datasphere's outdated systems into something revolutionary. As cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions, I caught sight of Nathan at the back of the room. He looked older, diminished somehow. Beside him, Victoria clutched her designer handbag like a shield, her expression a mix of fear and resignation. "Ms. Kincaid?" a reporter called out. "Any response to Nathan Mitchell's claims that this is a personal vendetta?" I smiled, remembering the night I'd discovered his betrayal, the years of building my empire from nothing. This isn't about personal vendettas. It's about vision. About understanding that the future belongs to those who create it, not those who try to control it. The headlines the next morning told the story. Nova Digital reshapes global marketing landscape. Pierce. Global faces dissolution. Marketing Queen's empire expands. But the real story wasn't in the headlines. It was in the quiet triumph of transformation. In the knowledge that I'd built something lasting from the ashes of betrayal. Nathan and Victoria might have started this story, but I would write its ending. My phone buzzed with a message from Gregory. "Board meeting in New York next week. Time to plan the next chapter?" I looked out at the Dubai skyline, thinking about all the chapters that had led to this moment. The betrayal, the rebuilding, the rise to power. They were all just prologue. The real story was just beginning. "Sarah," I called out. "Book the jet. It's time to go home and show the world what Nova Digital can really do." As night fell over Dubai, I raised my glass to the glittering cityscape. Somewhere in this city, Nathan and Victoria were facing the ruins of their ambitions. But up here, in my Tower of Triumph, I was crafting a future they could never have imagined. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just success, it's rewriting the rules of the game entirely. London rain tapped against the windows of my Mayfair office, a gentle counterpoint to the chaos unfolding on my screens. The European market was buzzing with the news. Digital marketing, pioneer found dead. Datasphere founder Richard Chen Deese at 68. Beneath that headline, another caught my eye. Inheritance battle looms as Chen's daughter challenges Nova digital merger. Emily Chen is demanding a full review of the acquisition, Marcus reported, spreading documents across my desk. She's claiming her father was coerced, that the merger wasn't in Datasphere's best interests. I studied Emily Chen's photo in the financial press. Young, ambitious, with degrees from Oxford and MIT, she was everything Nathan had pretended to be. And unlike Nathan, she actually understood digital innovation. What do we know about her? I asked, though I'd already compiled a detailed dossier on Richard Chen's only daughter. Sarah pulled up a comprehensive profile on the wall screen. 32, tech prodigy, developed 3 successful apps before joining Datasphere's R&D division. Her father passed her over for CEO 6 months ago, choosing to pursue the Pierce Global merger instead. And now she's using his death to challenge our acquisition, I mused, remembering my own battles for recognition. Interesting timing. My phone buzzed with a message from Gregory. Emily Chen just hired Victoria's father's law firm. Nathan's involved. Of course he was. Nathan never could resist a chance to play corporate knight in shining armor, especially for brilliant young women with something to prove. Some patterns never changed. Get me everything on the Chen family dynamics, I instructed Sarah. Family, disputes, board meetings, especially anything about Richard Chen's decision to pursue the merger, and set up a meeting with Emily. She's already declined 3 meeting requests, Marcus reminded me. I smiled, remembering another stubborn young woman who'd once been underestimated. Then we'll have to be more creative. The opportunity came sooner than expected. That evening, at a tech innovation gala in central London, I spotted Emily Chen holding court among a group of young entrepreneurs. She had her father's commanding presence, but none of his old-world restraint. Ms. Chen, I approached during a lull in her impromptu lecture on blockchain applications. Alexandra Kincaid, I believe we have some business to discuss. She turned, her expression cooling. I only discuss business with ethical companies, Ms. Kincaid. Companies that don't prey on grieving families. Like Pierce Global's law firm? I countered smoothly. Tell me, did Nathan Mitchell explain his history with hostile takeovers when he offered to help? A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. Good. She wasn't as sure of her allies as she pretended to be. My father built Datasphere from nothing, she said, steel entering her voice. He wouldn't have sold to you willingly. Actually, I gestured to a quiet corner. He built it from something very specific. Your mother's inheritance. The same inheritance he used to fund the Pierce Global merger talks while passing you over for CEO. Emily's composure cracked slightly. How did you know? I smiled. Because unlike Nathan Mitchell and his legal team, I actually do my research. Your father was brilliant, but he was also a product of his time. He couldn't see that the future of digital marketing was already in his company, in the innovations you developed. For the next hour, we talked technology, not takeovers. Emily's passion for digital innovation matched my own, her vision extending far beyond the traditional boundaries of marketing. By the time we finished our conversation, she was looking at me differently. Why didn't you tell me this before? She asked. About knowing my work, understanding my vision. Would you have listened? I watched understanding dawn in her eyes. Sometimes people need to choose their own paths. even if those paths lead through questionable law firms and disgraced executives. My phone buzzed. Nathan, predictably. I showed Emily the screen. Speaking of questionable allies. She hesitated, then nodded. I took the call on speaker. Alexandra? Nathan's voice dripped with false concern. I hope you're prepared for what's coming. Emily Chen is going to... Is sitting right here? I interrupted. Would you like to explain to her why you didn't mention your history with corporate fraud? Or shall I? The silence was delicious. Emily's expression hardened as she listened to Nathan fumble for words. Emily, don't let her manipulate you, he finally managed. Your father used my mother's money to fund his boys' club while ignoring my innovations, Emily cut in. Just like you used Alexandra's talent while taking credit for her ideas. I've heard enough. After she hung up, Emily turned to me. I want to know everything. About Nathan, about Pierce Global, about what really happened with my father's company. Back in my office, as rain continued to paint patterns on the windows, I showed Emily the truth. The real merger documents, showing how Nova Digital planned to implement her innovations globally. The development budget that would have been slashed under Pierce Global's leadership. The future her father had chosen for her, even if he hadn't, lived to explain why. He knew, she said finally, staring at the projections. He knew Pierce Global would have destroyed everything I built, that Nathan would have stripped Datasphere for parts. Your father was many things, I agreed, but he wasn't blind. He saw what Nathan and Pierce Global did in Asia. He chose Nova Digital because we build things up, not tear them down. Dawn was breaking over London when we finally finished. Emily stood, exhausted but resolute. I'm withdrawing the legal challenge, but I want something in return. Name it. I want to lead Datasphere's R&D division globally. No interference, full creative control. I smiled, remembering my own journey from underestimated wife to corporate powerhouse. Done. Welcome to Nova Digital, Ms. Chen. Later that morning, as Emily's withdrawal of the legal challenge sent shockwaves through the industry, Sarah brought in the latest updates. Nathan's been fired from Pierce Global's legal team. Apparently, Emily shared some interesting emails about his planned strategy for Datasphere. And Victoria's father? Retiring, effectively immediately. The law firm's partners are distancing themselves from the entire situation. I nodded, watching London come alive below. Make sure Nathan receives a particular piece of news first. Which is? Emily Chen's appointment as Global Chief Innovation Officer of Nova Digital, overseeing all R&D, including our new London headquarters. My phone lit up almost immediately. Nathan again. This time, I let it go to voicemail. Some calls, like some chapters in life, weren't worth answering. Gregory's message arrived moments later. Saw the news about Emily Chen. Brilliant move. Ready to reshape the European market? I smiled, thinking about the young woman who'd reminded me so much of myself. Tell the board to prepare for something revolutionary. Emily Chen isn't just an ally. She's the future we've been building toward. As evening settled over London, I stood in my office watching the city lights bloom. Somewhere in this vast metropolis, Nathan was facing another professional humiliation, while Emily Chen was beginning her journey from overlooked innovator to industry leader. The rain had finally stopped, leaving the city washed clean. Sometimes, the best victories weren't about revenge or power. They were about recognition. About seeing potential where others saw only obstacles. About building a legacy that would outlast any personal triumph. Sarah, I called out, schedule a global leadership meeting for next week. It's time to show the world what happens when we stop fighting old battles and start creating new possibilities. The London night sparkled with promise. In New York, Singapore, Dubai, and now here, Nova Digital was becoming something more than a company. It was becoming a testament to the power of transformation, a beacon for every underestimated visionary ready to reshape their world. And this was just the beginning. The Mediterranean sun painted my Monte Carlo penthouse in shades of gold as I reviewed the morning's research briefs. The Monaco Tech Summit would begin in 3 hours, and my keynote speech needed to be perfect. Not because I cared about the audience of tech billionaires and digital innovators, but because of one particular attendee, my daughter, Sophia. The live stream is confirmed for all Nova digital offices worldwide, Sarah reported, tablet in hand. Emily Chen will introduce you from our London headquarters. I nodded, adjusting the last few slides of my presentation. 15 years had passed since I'd discovered Nathan's betrayal, 13 since I'd started building my empire from a tiny Brooklyn office. Now, at 48, I was about to announce the innovation that would revolutionize digital marketing forever. My phone buzzed with a message from Gregory. "Nathan's here. He's representing some Silicon Valley startup, trying to get backing." Of course he was. After his humiliation in London, he'd fled to California, attaching himself to any tech company. That would have him. Always chasing the next big thing, never understanding that true innovation came from vision, not desperation. "Mom?" Sophia stood in the doorway, already dressed for the summit in a tailored Chanel suit that matched mine. At 15, she was everything I'd fought to become: confident, brilliant, and unafraid to claim her place in the world. "Ready for your first tech summit?" I asked, taking in her poised demeanor. She'd inherited my drive and Gregory's strategic mind, a combination that made her formidable even as a teenager. "Nathan's downstairs," she said, her tone carefully neutral, "with his son." Ah, that explained the extra security alert on my phone. James Mitchell, Nathan and Victoria's 14-year-old, who'd grown up hearing who knew what version of our history. "How do you feel about that?" I studied my daughter's face, remembering all the careful conversations we'd had about her half-brother, about the complicated legacy she'd inherited. "I feel sorry for him," Sophia said finally. "He tries so hard to defend his father, but everyone here knows the real story. About the Mailroom, about Pierce Global, about London." My clever girl. She'd learned early to gather intelligence, to understand the landscape before making any moves. A knock at the door interrupted our moment. Marcus entered, his expression concerned. "We have a situation. Nathan's startup. They've developed something similar to Project Aurora." Project Aurora was Nova Digital's most closely guarded secret, the culmination of years of research and Emily Chen's brilliant innovations. The fact that Nathan's company had anything resembling it was concerning. How similar? I kept my voice level, conscious of Sophia watching intently. "Similar enough to make the patent office take notice. They've filed for protection on key components." I felt a smile spread across my face, the same one that had preceded some of my greatest victories. "When did they file?" "Last week, following a private investment from Victoria's father," I finished. James Pierce's last attempt at relevance, no doubt. "Get me everything on their patent application. And find out who's been accessing our secure servers." Sophia's eyes widened. "You think they had inside help?" "Your father never had an original idea in his life," I told her. "He always needed someone else's vision to steal." The next hour was a whirlwind of activity. While my security team traced the data breach, I revised my keynote speech. If Nathan wanted to play this game again, I'd make sure he remembered why he'd ended up in the mailroom the first time. The Monte Carlo Tech Summit venue was a marvel of modern architecture, all glass and sweeping curves overlooking the yacht-filled harbor. As my team and I arrived, I caught sight of Nathan near the entrance, older but still carrying himself with that false confidence that had once fooled me. Beside him stood James, a lanky teenager with his father's features and Victoria's uncertain smile. He looked up as we approached, his eyes finding Sophia with a mix of curiosity and defiance. "Alexandra," Nathan stepped forward, all smooth charm. "You look successful." "Nathan," I replied coolly. "Still playing with other people's ideas, I see." His smile faltered slightly. "Our startup's innovation is completely original. The patent office will receive proof of corporate espionage within the hour," I cut in, along with evidence linking the data breach to Pierce Global's investment team. The color drained from his face. "You can't prove—" "Actually," Sophia spoke up, her voice carrying that perfect blend of innocence and authority, "we already have. The timestamps on your patent application match exactly with unauthorized server access from a Pierce Global IP address." I felt a surge of pride as Nathan struggled to respond. James looked between his father and half-sister, confusion replacing defiance. "Dad?" he asked. "What is she talking about?" But Nathan was already pulling out his phone, no doubt trying to warn his investors before the news broke. I turned to Sophia. "Ready to watch history repeat itself?" She smiled, her father's strategic mind shining through. "Always." The summit's main hall was packed when Emily Chen took the stage to introduce me. From my waiting position, I could see Nathan and James slipping into seats near the back, while Victoria's father watched nervously from the VIP section. "Ladies and gentlemen," Emily began, 15 years ago, a woman with a vision transformed digital marketing forever. Today, she's going to do it again." I walked onto the stage to thunderous applause, remembering another presentation long ago, when Nathan had dismissed my ideas as unrealistic. Now he would watch as those ideas, evolved and perfected, changed the industry again. Project Aurora isn't just an innovation in digital marketing, I announced, watching Nathan's face fall as I revealed the full scope of what he'd tried to steal. It's a complete reinvention of how we connect in the digital age. For the next hour, I outlined the future, not the pale imitation Nathan's startup had pieced together, but the real revolution Emily Chen and I had been building. With each revelation, I could see James Pierce's expression shifting from worry to panic, while his legal team frantically whispered among themselves. Sophia sat in the front row, taking notes with the same intensity I'd once brought to my own dreams of success. Beside her, Emily Chen smiled like a proud sister, another brilliant woman who'd refused to let men define her potential. As I concluded my presentation, security was already escorting Nathan and the Pierce Global team from the building. Their patent application would be withdrawn by morning, their startup another casualty of Nathan's desperate grab for relevance. "Mom?" Sophia found me after the standing ovation had died down. "James asked if we could talk. I think he has questions about what really happened." I studied my daughter's face, seeing the same compassion that had once led me to offer Victoria's father a chance at redemption. "Sometimes," I said carefully, "the truth is the greatest gift we can give." That evening, as the Monaco lights twinkled like earthbound stars, I watched Sophia and James talking quietly in the hotel garden. They had none of the awkwardness of their parents' bitter history, only the curious connection of two teenagers, discovering their shared story. "They look like they're plotting something," Marcus observed, bringing me the latest market reports. "Good," I smiled. "The future belongs to those who know how to build bridges, not burn them." My phone lit up with messages from around the world. Congratulations, partnership offers, acquisition proposals. But the message that caught my eye was from Gregory. "Nathan's startup is imploding. Want to buy the pieces?" I thought about it, remembering the mailroom, the long journey from betrayed wife to global innovator. "No," I replied. "Let someone else clean up his mess this time. We have bigger dreams to build." The Mediterranean night wrapped around Monte Carlo like a velvet cloak. In the garden below, Sophia was showing James something on her tablet, their heads bent together in concentration. Whatever wounds their fathers had inflicted, their children might just heal. "Sarah," I called out softly, "make sure James has access to our Young Innovators program. If he has half his sister's talent, he deserves a chance to make his own name." Tomorrow, Project Aurora would begin reshaping the digital landscape. Stock markets would react, competitors would scramble, and somewhere in California, Nathan would face the consequences of his choices one final time. But tonight, watching my daughter forge her own path through our complicated legacy, I realized that success wasn't just about winning. Sometimes it was about knowing when to extend a hand to the next generation, even if their names carried the weight of past betrayals. After all, empires weren't built on revenge. They were built on vision. And vision, like the Mediterranean stars above, had a way of illuminating paths we never expected to walk. Snow fell softly outside the windows of Nova Digital's New York headquarters, coating Manhattan in pristine white. I stood in my executive suite, watching Sophia lead her first major client presentation 60 floors below. At 17, my daughter commanded the boardroom with a natural grace that made my heart swell with pride. "The quarterly projections are exceptional," Marcus said, laying a tablet on my desk. "Project Aurora exceeded every benchmark. The board wants to fast-track Sophia's Youth Innovation Initiative." I nodded, remembering my own battles for recognition at her age. But Sophia's path was different. She didn't have to fight for respect. She'd earned it naturally, building bridges between generations, between old wounds and new possibilities. My intercom buzzed. "Ms. Kincaid?" Sarah's voice carried an unusual note of hesitation. "Victoria's here. She's asking to speak with you." That was unexpected. After the Monaco Tech Summit debacle, Victoria had disappeared to some private island, leaving Nathan to face the startup scandal alone. Her reappearance now couldn't be coincidence. "Send her in." I turned to face the door, curious what could bring Nathan's second wife to my office after all these years. Victoria had aged well, though stress had carved fine lines around her eyes. Gone were the designer labels and ostentatious jewelry. She wore a simple black suit, her once perfect manicure now practical and short. "Alexandra." Her voice was softer than I remembered. "Thank you for seeing me." "Victoria." I gestured to a chair. "I assume this isn't a social call." She sat, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. "It's about James. He's applied to Nova Digital's internship program." "Ah, of course." James Mitchell, now 16, had been working closely with our youth development team since Monaco. His talent for digital innovation matched Sophia's, though his style was distinctly his own. "I know," I replied. "His application was quite impressive." "Nathan doesn't know." Victoria's composure cracked slightly. "After Monaco, after everything fell apart, he hasn't been the same. The drinking, the angry calls to investors, the desperate pitches to venture capitalists. James can't take it anymore." I studied her carefully, remembering another woman who'd once escaped a toxic situation. "And you? How are you handling Nathan's difficulties?" I left him. She met my eyes squarely. 3 months ago, James and I moved back to New York. I'm working at a small marketing firm in Brooklyn. The irony wasn't lost on me. Victoria, who'd once helped Nathan betray me, was now following my path to independence. "Why are you really here, Victoria?" She took a deep breath. "Because James deserves better than his father's legacy. Because Sophia showed him there's another way to succeed in this industry. And because," she hesitated, "because I owe you an apology for everything." Before I could respond, my office door opened. Sophia strode in, fresh from her successful presentation, then stopped short at the sight of Victoria. "Mrs. Mitchell," Sophia said coolly, then softening slightly. "How's James?" "Better, since you helped him with his internship application." Victoria managed a small smile. He talks about you all the time, about the innovation lab, the mentorship program. I watched my daughter's face, seeing the same compassion that had led her to reach out to her half-brother. The application review committee meets tomorrow, Sophia said. His coding skills are exceptional. Speaking of exceptional, Marcus interrupted from the doorway. The client feedback from your presentation just came in. They're doubling their investment in the youth marketing initiative. Pride bloomed in my chest as Sophia accepted the news with professional grace. She'd learned to celebrate success without becoming intoxicated by it, a lesson Nathan had never mastered. Victoria stood abruptly. I should go. Thank you for seeing me, Alexandra. And Sophia. She paused. Thank you for being kind to James. He needed that more than you know. After she left, Sophia turned to me. You're going to approve James's internship, aren't you? The committee will make that decision, I replied diplomatically. She rolled. Her eyes, so much the teenager despite her professional demeanor. Mom, please. We both know you have the final say. And James is brilliant. His project proposal for digital community building could revolutionize how we approach social impact. Marketing. I smiled, remembering all the times Nathan had dismissed my proposals for community-focused initiatives. You seem very invested in your brother's success. Half-brother, she corrected automatically, then sighed. He's not Nathan, Mom. He's just a kid who wants to create something meaningful. Like I do. My phone buzzed. A message from Gregory. Nathan's making noise about James's internship application, threatening to go to the press with allegations of poaching his son. I showed the message to Sophia, watching her process the information, with the strategic mind she'd inherited from both her parents. Let him, she said finally. James is 16. He can make his own choices. And if Nathan wants to publicly admit that his son chose Nova Digital over his failed startups, that's his problem. In that moment, looking at my daughter's determined expression, I saw the future of Nova Digital more clearly than ever. It wasn't about old rivalries or past betrayals. It was about building something that would outlast all of that. A legacy of innovation, compassion, and strategic brilliance. Sarah, I called out, schedule a meeting with the internship committee for this afternoon and send a message to James Mitchell. Tell him his interview will be tomorrow morning. Later that evening, as snow continued to transform Manhattan, I watched Sophia and James working together in one of our innovation labs. They sat side by side, coding and debating, occasionally laughing at some shared joke. Through the glass walls, I could see the future taking shape. They're quite the team, Emily Chen observed, joining me at the window. James has your eye for market trends, you know, and Sophia. She's going to change this industry in ways we haven't even imagined. My phone lit up with another angry message from Nathan, full of threats and accusations. I deleted it without reading, focusing instead on the scene before me. My daughter and her half-brother, children of betrayal and triumph, working together to build something new. Mom? Sophia called out, waving me into the lab. James found something in the community engagement algorithms. You need to see this. As I joined them, listening to their excited explanation of a breakthrough that could genuinely help connect underserved communities, I realized that success had many forms. Sometimes it looked like corporate takeovers and strategic victories. Sometimes it looked like two teenagers finding common ground in code and creativity. Victoria's words echoed in my mind. James deserves better than his father's legacy. Looking at these bright young faces, untouched by the bitterness of their parents' past, I knew she was right. They both deserved the chance to write their own story. Sarah, I said quietly, watching Sophia and James return to their work. Draft a press release about Nova Digital's commitment to nurturing young talent. Include a quote from me about the importance of giving the next generation space to innovate without the burden of past conflicts. Let Nathan rage. Let the press speculate. The future belonged to these brilliant children who saw beyond old wounds to new possibilities. The snow kept falling, wrapping Manhattan in peaceful white. In our gleaming tower of innovation, tomorrow's leaders were already at work, proving that the best revenge against betrayal wasn't success or power or even forgiveness. It was watching your children rise above it all, reaching for stars their parents never dared to imagine. Cherry blossoms danced past the floor-to-ceiling windows of Nova Digital's Tokyo headquarters. From my temporary office, I watched as Sophia and James presented their community engagement platform to a room full of Asia's top tech executives. At 18 and 17, respectively, they commanded attention with an ease that made the old guard sit up straight. Their platform registered 1 million users in its first week, Marcus reported, sliding a tablet across my desk. The social impact metrics are unprecedented. Even Emily Chen is impressed. I smiled, remembering my own first major success. But this was different. My children, and yes, I'd begun thinking of James as one of my own, had created something that transcended profit margins and market share. They'd built a tool for genuine human connection. My intercom crackled. "Ms. Kincaid?" Sarah's tone held a note of concern. "There's a situation developing in San Francisco. Nathan's giving a press conference." I turned to the wall of screens, where Nathan's haggard face filled multiple news feeds. He stood outside a startup incubator, his once impeccable suit showing signs of wear. "My son has been turned against me," he was saying, his voice thick with manufactured emotion. "Alexandra Kincaid didn't just steal my company, now she's stolen my child, poisoned him with promises of success." "Turn it off," I instructed, but a new voice made me pause. "That's enough, Dad." James stepped into the frame, Sophia at his side. They must have live-streamed in from Tokyo, their professional demeanor a stark contrast to Nathan's disheveled appearance. "No one stole me," James continued, his voice steady. "I chose to intern at Nova Digital because they value innovation over ego. Because they understand that success isn't about destroying competition. It's about creating something meaningful." Sophia stepped forward. "Our community engagement platform has connected 1 million people in its first week. It's helping underprivileged students access educational resources, enabling remote communities to access healthcare information. What have your startups done lately, Nathan?" I watched pride and pain war on Nathan's face as his children, our children, dismantled his accusations with calm precision. "Ms. Kincaid," Sarah interrupted my thoughts. "Victoria's calling from New York." I took the call privately, curious what Nathan's ex-wife would make of this latest development. "Alexandra." Victoria's voice was tired but resolute. "I assume you're watching this circus?" "Hard to miss," I replied, watching Nathan attempt to regain control of his press conference. "How are you holding up?" "Better than him." She sighed. "The drinking's gotten worse. He lost another investor last week. But James, Alexandra, I've never seen him so confident, so purposeful. You and Sophia gave him that." Before I could respond, Marcus rushed in. "The market's reacting to the press conference. Our stock is up 12%. Investors are calling it a changing of the guard moment." Of course they were. Nothing attracted market attention like public drama, especially when it showcased the next generation of tech leadership. "Victoria," I said, an idea forming, "how would you feel about joining Nova Digital's community outreach division? Your experience with smaller firms could be valuable." The silence stretched for a moment. "Are you serious? After everything that happened?" "The past is the past," I replied, watching Sophia and James conclude their presentation to thunderous applause. "Our children are building the future. Maybe it's time we helped them." Hours later, as Tokyo's neon lights painted the night in electric colors, I sat with Sophia and James in my office. They were still buzzing from their successful presentation, but I could see the emotional toll of the day in their eyes. "I'm sorry about Dad," James said quietly. "I never thought he'd go this far." Sophia squeezed his hand. "He's just proving why we're doing this our way." "Your way," I corrected. "This platform is your vision, not mine, not Nathan's, not anyone else's." My phone lit up with a message from Gregory. "Nathan's been admitted to a rehabilitation facility. Voluntary commitment. He's asking to speak with James." I showed the message to the teenagers, watching their reactions carefully. James straightened, his shoulders looking so much older than his 17 years. "I'll talk to him," he decided, "but not about business, not about Nova Digital, just as his son." Sophia nodded approvingly. "Want me to come with you?" "Always." James smiled at his half-sister. "You're better at keeping me strategic." My intercom buzzed again. "Ms. Kincaid, the global development team is ready for the platform. Integration briefing. And Emily Chen says the Asian market expansion numbers are beyond projections." I watched my children gather their materials, their movements synchronized by months of collaboration. They'd taken the worst parts of their parents' history and transformed them into something revolutionary. "Mom?" Sophia paused at the door. "We're thinking of adding a mental health support component to the platform, something to help people struggling with addiction, with family trauma. Would that be okay?" I felt tears prick my eyes, unexpected but welcome. More than okay. It's exactly what this company should be doing. Later that night, as cherry blossoms continued their dance outside, I reviewed the day's events. Nathan's public meltdown, James's powerful response, Sophia's steady support, it all painted a picture of transformation that went beyond business success. Victoria's voicemail waited on my phone. "Thank you for the job offer. I accept. Not for redemption or forgiveness, but because I want to be part of what our children are building." Our children. The phrase struck me anew. Somewhere along the way, the boundaries between victor and vanquished, betrayer and betrayed, had blurred. In their place stood something stronger, a legacy of healing, of innovation, of purposeful change. "Sarah," I called out, "schedule a global leadership meeting for next week. It's time to realign our mission statement with the vision Sophia and James have created." The Tokyo night sparkled with possibility. In New York, London, Singapore, and now here, Nova Digital was evolving beyond my wildest dreams. Not because of my quest for revenge or Nathan's desperate grabs for relevance, but because two remarkable teenagers had decided to turn their parents' war into a revolution of connection. My phone chimed with one last message, from Emily Chen. "Just reviewed the platform's impact metrics. This isn't just digital marketing anymore. This is digital transformation. The next generation has arrived." I smiled, watching Sophia and James work late into the night, their faces illuminated by screens showing global engagement numbers. They were writing their own story now, one where old wounds became foundations for new bridges, where success meant more than market share and stock prices. Nathan might have broken my heart 15 years ago, but in doing so, he'd inadvertently helped create something extraordinary. A future where his children would heal the very divisions he'd caused. And that, I realized, was the greatest victory of all. The Paris sun painted the Champs-Élysées in autumn gold as I reviewed the final details for Nova Digital's 20th anniversary celebration. 2 decades of transformation, innovation, and growth had turned my small Brooklyn startup into a global phenomenon. But tonight wasn't about my journey. It was about the future. "The guest list is confirmed," Sarah announced, her silver hair elegant against her tailored suit. She'd been with me since the beginning, watching my empire rise from the ashes of betrayal. Though there's one last-minute addition you should know about. I looked up from the holographic display showing real-time party preparations at the Palais Garnier. Nathan's requested an invitation. Sarah nodded, unsurprised I'd guessed. He's been sober for 3 years. His therapist wrote a letter supporting his request to attend. Through the window of my Parisian office, I could see Sophia directing the setup for her keynote presentation. At 25, my daughter had grown into a visionary leader, taking Nova Digital in directions I'd never imagined. Beside her, James worked seamlessly to integrate their latest innovation, a platform that would revolutionize how people connected across cultural and economic barriers. My intercom chimed. Ms. Kincaid? Emily Chen is here with the latest metrics from the Global Impact Initiative. Emily entered, her presence as commanding as ever. The numbers are extraordinary. The mental health support network James developed has helped over 10 million people in the past year alone. And Sophia's educational access program has provided resources to communities in 97 countries. I smiled, remembering simpler times when success was measured in market share and stock prices. And the corporate side? Nova Digital remains the most valuable company in our sector, Emily confirmed, but that's not why you're smiling. She was right. My pride stemmed from watching the next generation transform corporate success into social impact. Sophia and James had taken everything their parents fought over and turned it into a force for global good. My phone lit up with a message from Gregory. Nathan's in Paris. He's checked into a hotel near the Opera House. Victoria's with him. They reconciled last month after his 3-year sobriety milestone. That was unexpected. Victoria had built her own impressive career running Nova Digital's community outreach division, helping small businesses adapt to the digital age. Her reconciliation with Nathan spoke volumes about his transformation. Mom? Sophia stood in the doorway, James at her side. We need your input on something. I gestured them in, noting how they carried themselves, confident, united, yet humble in a way their parents had never been. They'd learned from our mistakes, building bridges where we'd once burned them. We want to invite Dad to present. During the legacy segment, James said quietly, to acknowledge the complete journey of Nova Digital, including the parts that aren't comfortable to remember. Sophia watched me carefully. It's time, Mom. Time to show the world that success isn't just about winning or losing. It's about evolution. Before I could respond, Marcus burst in, his face alight with excitement. The platform's global launch numbers just broke every record in digital history. 2 billion users in the first hour. The press is calling it the beginning of a new era in human connection. I studied my children's faces, seeing the future of not just Nova Digital, but of human potential itself. They'd taken their inheritance of pain and competition and transformed it into something revolutionary. Sarah, I called out, tell Nathan, his invitation is confirmed, and add him to the speaker list for the legacy segment. The day of the celebration dawned clear and crisp. The Palais Garnier gleamed in the autumn light, its 19th century grandeur a striking contrast to the cutting-edge technology being installed for tonight's presentations. From my private dressing room, I watched the final preparations through various camera feeds. Sophia directed her team with graceful authority, while James fine-tuned the neural interface demonstrations that would showcase their latest innovations. A knock at my door revealed Victoria, elegant in midnight blue. Alexandra, thank you for this opportunity. For all of it. I gestured her in, remembering another time, another woman who'd stood in doorways seeking reconciliation. How is he? Nervous, she admitted. Excited. Terrified. He's practiced his speech 100 times, trying to find the right words to express everything. And you? I studied the woman who'd once been my rival, now a respected colleague, and surprisingly, a friend. How does it feel coming full circle? Victoria smiled, tears gathering in her eyes. like watching a masterclass in grace. Our children showed us a better way, didn't they? My phone buzzed. Nathan had arrived. Through the security feeds, I watched him enter the opera house, sober and dignified in his tuxedo. He paused in the grand foyer, taking in the displays chronicling Nova Digital's journey from startup to global phenomenon. "Mom?" Sophia appeared, radiant in emerald silk. "Everyone's ready. It's time." The main auditorium had been transformed into a showcase of digital innovation. Holographic displays danced through the air, showing Nova Digital's global impact in real time. The mental health support network pulsed with healing connections, while the educational access program lit up with millions of active users. I took my place on stage, facing the assembled guests, tech leaders, innovators, pioneers of digital transformation. But my eyes found 4 people in the front row. My daughter Sophia, her half-brother James, their father Nathan, and Victoria, all sitting together in a picture of reconciliation I'd never thought possible. 20 years ago, I began. I sat in a tiny Brooklyn office, dreaming of creating something meaningful from the ashes of betrayal. I thought success meant proving something to those who had underestimated me. I thought power was the ultimate victory. The audience was silent, captivated. Even Nathan leaned forward, his expression open and attentive. But true power, I learned, isn't about dominance or revenge. It's about evolution, about taking our worst moments and transforming them into catalysts for change. Sophia and James stood, making their way to the stage. They'd grown into leaders who understood that the future belonged not to those who fought the hardest, but to those who built the strongest connections. Tonight isn't about celebrating my journey, I continued. It's about honoring the next generation, who took our legacy of competition and transformed it into a revolution of compassion. I gestured to Nathan, who rose slowly and joined us on stage. For a moment, we stood together, the past, present, and future of Nova Digital, united not by victory or defeat, but by the shared understanding that redemption was possible. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, "I give you the true heart of Nova Digital. Not our market value or global reach, but our commitment to human connection. To proving that even the deepest wounds can become foundations for bridges." The presentation that followed was a masterpiece of technology and humanity. Sophia and James demonstrated how their platform was breaking down barriers between communities, creating opportunities for understanding and growth. Nathan spoke honestly about his journey from ambitious executive to recovering addict, and how his children's work had helped him find purpose beyond personal gain. Victoria joined us for the final segment, completing the circle of our shared history. Together, we watched as Nova Digital's global impact statistics filled the air around us. Billions of lives touched, millions of connections forged, countless barriers broken. Later that night, as the celebration continued below, I stood on the Opera House's rooftop terrace with my extended family. Nathan, sober and sincere, watched his children with quiet pride. Victoria leaned against him, at peace with their reconstructed relationship. Sophia and James excitedly discussed their next innovation, their energy infectious. "I never thought we'd be here," Nathan said softly, joining me at the railing. "Not just at this event, but here, together, whole." I studied the man who had once broken my heart, seeing not the betrayer who'd sparked my journey to success, but a father who'd found redemption through his children's vision. "Our children taught us well," I replied, watching Sophia and James demonstrate something on their neural interfaces to a fascinated Victoria. "They showed us that the best revenge isn't success or power. It's evolution," Nathan finished, "becoming something better than our past selves." My phone lit up with messages from around the world. Congratulations, partnership proposals, impact reports. But the message that caught my eye was from Gregory. "Ready for the next chapter?" The kids have something extraordinary planned. I smiled, remembering the woman who'd once dreamed of proving her worth through corporate takeovers. She'd given birth to something far more valuable, a legacy of transformation that would outlive any personal triumph. "Mom!" Sophia called, out excitedly. "James and I want to show you something. We've been developing a new application for the platform, something that could help heal generational trauma." As I joined my children, watching them outline their vision for technology that could bridge not just digital divides but emotional ones, I realized that success had many faces. Sometimes it looked like market dominance and strategic victories. Sometimes it looked like a family healing its wounds under the Paris stars. Sarah appeared with a tablet showing the latest engagement metrics. The mental health network just passed 20 million active users. The educational platform is expanding into 30 new countries next month. But I was barely listening, too captivated by the sight before me. Nathan and Victoria collaborating with their children on a project designed to help others heal from experiences like our own. The cycle of pain and revenge had transformed into a circle of innovation and growth. The Paris night wrapped us in its timeless embrace as Sophia and James demonstrated their latest breakthrough. Above us, stars sparkled like the dreams we'd all once chased, while below, the city of light reminded us that even the darkest moments could lead to brilliant transformations. "Alexandra," Nathan said quietly, "thank you. Not for the success or the power or even the forgiveness. Thank you for helping our children become better than we were." I watched Sophia explain a complex algorithm to Victoria, while James fine-tuned the neural interface settings. They moved with the confidence of leaders who understood that true innovation came from healing, not hurting. My phone chimed with another message, Emily Chen sharing the preliminary results of their latest impact study. The numbers were staggering, but they weren't what made me smile. It was the human stories behind them. Lives changed, connections forged, wounds healed. The future stretched before us like the Paris skyline, full of possibility and promise. Nova Digital had evolved from a revenge-driven startup into a force for global transformation, guided by the vision of two remarkable young people who'd refused to let their parents' past define their future. And that, I realized, was the greatest success story of all. The Moscow winter painted the city in shades of white and gray as I reviewed the troubling report on my desk. Nova Digital's Russian subsidiary had uncovered something that threatened to shatter our carefully rebuilt family harmony. Evidence of corporate espionage originating from one of our most trusted executives. "The trace is conclusive," Marcus said gravely, pointing to lines of code on my holographic display. "Someone with high-level access has been selling our breakthrough technologies to competitors. The digital signature? It matches Victoria's security credentials." My heart sank as I studied the evidence. After years of redemption, of building trust and fostering reconciliation, could Victoria have betrayed us again? The timestamp on the data transfers coincided with her recent trips to Moscow, ostensibly to oversee the community outreach program she'd built from scratch. "Does Nathan know?" I asked, thinking of their recently rekindled relationship. "No," Marcus replied. But Sophia and James discovered the breach. They're the ones who traced it. As if summoned by their names, my children burst into the office, their faces tight with tension. "Mom," Sophia began, "we need to talk about Victoria." I gestured them to sit, noting how James gripped the arms of his chair, his knuckles white. They'd grown so close to their stepmother over the years, watching her transform from their father's mistress into a respected leader in digital community development. "Show me everything," I said quietly. For the next hour, they laid out a complex trail of digital breadcrumbs. Someone had indeed been accessing our most sensitive files using Victoria's credentials, but something about the pattern felt off. The access points were too obvious, the trail too easy to follow. "There's more," James added, his voice strained. "Dad's been acting strange lately. Secret meetings, encrypted calls. I thought it was about my birthday next month, but now... My phone lit up with a message from Gregory. Emergency situation at the Moscow office. Victoria's been arrested by Russian authorities. They're claiming she's a corporate spy. The room fell silent as we absorbed this new development. Sophia's hands flew over her neural interface, pulling up Russian news feeds. James paced by the window, his reflection fractured against the snowy backdrop. "This doesn't make sense," Sophia muttered. Victoria helped design our security protocols. She wouldn't leave such an obvious trail. Unless she wanted to be caught, I mused, remembering older lessons about misdirection and corporate warfare. "Sarah, get me Nathan on a secure line." The call connected to reveal Nathan's worried face. "Alexandra, have you heard about Victoria's arrest?" "Yes. Nathan, we need to know. Has she mentioned anything unusual lately? Any concerns about the Moscow operation?" He ran a hand through his silver hair, a gesture so familiar it ached. "She's been worried about something. Said she'd discovered irregularities in the Russian community outreach data, but needed proof before coming forward." James stopped pacing. "The community outreach program. That's it. Mom, remember last month when Victoria requested an audit of the Russian user data?" Sophia's fingers flew over her interface. "The audit that was mysteriously delayed by local authorities." Of course, she wasn't stealing data. She was tracking someone who was. "Pull up the original community outreach protocols," I instructed. Victoria's version, not the one currently running in Moscow. As the code filled our screens, the truth emerged like dawn breaking through storm clouds. Victoria had discovered that someone had modified her program, using it to harvest sensitive information from vulnerable communities. Rather than expose the breach immediately, she'd followed the data trail, using her own credentials as bait. "Classic counterintelligence," Marcus whispered admiringly. "She made herself the target to protect the real investigation." My phone buzzed again. Emily Chen, her message urgent. "Found the mole. Viktor Petrov, Deputy Minister of Digital Development. He's been using our community outreach program to collect data on political dissidents." Sophia swore softly. "That's why Victoria let herself be arrested. She needed to get into the Russian cybercrime division to access their secure servers." "A division headed by Petrov himself," James added, understanding dawning in his eyes. "She's not just protecting Nova Digital. She's exposing government corruption." I stood. Decision made. "Sarah, prepare the jet. Marcus, activate our media response protocols. Sophia, James, I need your unique talents for what comes next." The next 48 hours were a masterclass in digital warfare. While I navigated the diplomatic channels, Sophia and James orchestrated a campaign that would make their parents proud and prove that the next generation had learned from our mistakes. Using their global connection platform, they revealed how Petrov had corrupted Victoria's humanitarian program, turning a tool for community empowerment into a weapon of surveillance. The evidence was irrefutable, their presentation flawless. Nathan worked his own angles, leveraging old business connections in Moscow to build pressure from within. Together, we created a storm that even the most hardened bureaucrats couldn't ignore. "Breaking news," the global feeds announced. "Russian Deputy Minister arrested for corruption. Nova Digital executive Victoria Mitchell cleared of all charges." Hours later, we gathered in my Moscow office. The whole complicated, beautiful mess of our family. Victoria looked exhausted, but proud. Her integrity not just intact, but shining. Nathan held her close, his eyes suspiciously bright. "I'm sorry." "For the deception," Victoria said softly. "I couldn't risk telling anyone until I had proof." "Even me?" Nathan asked, a hint of their old drama creeping into his voice. Victoria smiled tiredly. "Especially you, darling. You never could keep a secret." The tension broke as laughter filled the room. Sophia and James hugged their stepmother, their relief palpable. I watched them, remembering other moments of crisis that had torn our family apart instead of bringing it together. "You know," I said to Victoria, "there was a time I wouldn't have believed you capable of this kind of loyalty." She met my eyes, steadily. "There was a time I wasn't, but your children, they taught me what real integrity looks like, what it means to fight for something bigger than yourself." My phone chimed with updates from around the world. Nova Digital's stock was soaring as the full story emerged. Our community outreach program, far from being compromised, was being hailed as a model of corporate responsibility and ethical technology. But the real victory wasn't in the market numbers or media praise. It was in watching Sophia and James showcase their platform's potential for positive change, in seeing Nathan and Victoria's relationship strengthen through adversity rather than fracture. "Mom," Sophia called from her workstation, "we're ready to implement the enhanced security protocols. James and I have integrated some new features that should prevent this kind of manipulation from ever happening again." I joined my children, marveling at how they'd turned a potential disaster into an opportunity for innovation. They'd inherited their parents' strategic minds, but added something we'd often lacked: the wisdom to build rather than destroy. Victoria approached hesitantly. "Alexandra, thank you for trusting that I'd changed, even when the evidence suggested otherwise." "Actually," I smiled, "I trusted them." I nodded toward Sophia and James. "They see people as they are now, not as they were. It's a gift I'm still learning to cultivate." Later that night, as Moscow's lights twinkled through falling snow, our family gathered in my office. Nathan and Victoria curled together on the sofa, their recent ordeal having deepened their connection. Sophia and James excitedly outlined their plans for expanding the community outreach program, now strengthened by its trial by fire. "You know," Nathan mused, 20 years ago, this kind of crisis would have ended very differently." 20 years ago, I replied. "We were different people." Victoria raised her glass. "To evolution, and to the next generation who showed us a better way." As our children continued their animated discussion about digital ethics and community responsibility, I studied the family we'd become. Every bond tested and strengthened, every betrayal transformed into wisdom, every challenge met with unity instead of division. My phone lit up with one final message from Gregory. "Petrov's confession implicates others. There will be more storms to weather." I smiled, watching Sophia and James already planning for the next challenge, while Nathan and Victoria contributed insights born from experience. Let the storms come. We'd face them together, stronger for having learned that true power lies not in tearing things apart, but in building something worth protecting. The Moscow night deepened, but our family glowed with its own light, the light of redemption, of evolution, of love tested and proven in the crucible of crisis. Golden California sunlight streamed through the windows of Nova Digital's Silicon Valley campus as I reviewed an offer that could change everything. The quantum computing division of TechCore, our biggest rival, had approached Sophia with an astronomical proposal. They wanted her to lead their new global innovation department. "The numbers are unprecedented," Marcus said, displaying the offer. Details on my holographic screen. $10 billion in guaranteed funding, complete autonomy, and a direct path to CEO within 5 years. My heart tightened as I studied the terms. More than the money or the position, they were offering Sophia something even Nova Digital couldn't match: the chance to step completely out of my shadow and build something entirely her own. "James found out this morning," Sarah reported quietly. "He hasn't left his lab since." Of course he hadn't. The siblings had never worked apart, their synergy driving Nova Digital's most groundbreaking innovations. The thought of them separating sent ripples of unease through our carefully balanced family dynamic. My phone lit up with a message from Nathan. "TechCore approached me too. They want my insights on how to ease Sophia's transition. I said no, but Alexandra, she's seriously considering it. Before I could respond, Emily Chen burst into my office. We have another situation. Someone leaked the offer to the press. The market's already reacting. Our stock dropped 15% in the last hour. I pulled up the global news feeds, watching headlines multiply like digital wildfire. Nova Digital Air considering jump to rival firm. Kincaid dynasty in crisis. TechCore poised for historic coup. Mom? I turned to find Sophia in the doorway, her expression a complex mix of determination and uncertainty. At 26, she'd grown into a leader who could shake markets with a single decision. But right now, she looked like the little girl who used to ask me to check for monsters under her bed. Walk with me, I suggested, leading her to the rooftop garden we'd designed together. Silicon Valley stretched before us, a landscape of innovation and ambition that had shaped both our destinies. You've seen the offer, she began, running her fingers through the lavender plants. It's compelling. Because of the money? The position? I kept my voice neutral, remembering my own crossroads moments. Because sometimes I wonder if I'm just following a path you carved, she admitted. Everyone sees me as Alexandra Kincaid's daughter first, innovator second. At A. TechCore, I could prove. That you're more than your mother's legacy? I finished softly. Sophia, you proved that years ago. Every innovation, every breakthrough, those came from your vision, not mine. She turned to face me, tears threatening. James won't even talk to me. He thinks I'm betraying everything we built together. My phone buzzed. James was requesting access to the secure development servers. He was already preparing for his sister's departure, moving their joint projects to separate protocols. Have you asked yourself why TechCore made this offer now? I gestured to the valley below. Why they're willing to pay so much to separate you from your brother, your family, the company you helped transform. Sophia's eyes narrowed. She'd inherited my strategic mind along with her father's intuition. They're afraid, she realized. Our new quantum interface protocols, the ones James and I have been developing, would make their entire technology platform obsolete, I confirmed. They don't want you for your talent, Sophia. They want to stop what you and James are building here. The door burst open as James himself appeared, his face flushed with excitement. Soph, the quantum tests. You need to see this. For a moment, Sophia hesitated. Then she straightened, something shifting in her expression. Show me. I watched them hurry to their lab, their natural synchronicity already reasserting itself. Within hours, news alerts began flooding my screen. Nova Digital announces breakthrough in quantum computing. TechCore stock plummets on Nova Digital Innovation News. Sophia Kincaid declines TechCore offer, announces revolutionary development. Victoria found me still in the rooftop garden as sunset painted the valley in shades of promise. Crisis. Averted? Not a crisis, I corrected, watching Sophia and James through their lab windows below. A reminder of who we are, what we've built together. Nathan's been worried sick, she admitted. The thought of history repeating itself, of corporate ambition tearing the family apart again. But it didn't, I smiled. Because Sophia and James understand something we had to learn the hard way. True innovation comes from building bridges, not burning them. My phone chimed with a message from Gregory. TechCore's CEO just resigned. Board is calling for complete restructuring. Should we consider an acquisition? I showed the message to Victoria, who laughed softly. Always thinking 3 moves ahead, aren't you? Actually, I replied, I'm thinking it's time to let the next generation make those decisions. Later that night, as California's stars emerged above Silicon Valley's electric glow, our family gathered in the Quantum Development Lab. Sophia and James excitedly explained their breakthrough, their earlier tension forgotten in the thrill of shared discovery. Nathan watched them with pride, his arm around Victoria. Remember when we thought success meant beating the competition? He mused. Now we know it means becoming better than our former selves. Victoria finished, squeezing his hand. My phone lit up with congratulatory messages from around the world. Nova Digital's stock had not only recovered but soared to record heights. The quantum computing breakthrough was being hailed as the beginning of a new technological era. But the real victory wasn't in the market numbers or media acclaim. It was in watching Sophia choose her own path, not by running from her legacy but by building upon it. In seeing James's faith in his sister vindicated, in knowing that our next generation had learned to face challenges with unity instead of division. "Mom," Sophia called out, her face glowing with the same passion I'd once brought to my own dreams. "James and I have been thinking. What if we use the quantum interface to expand the community outreach program? We could create connections that transcend normal technological limitations." I joined my children at their workstation, marveling at how they'd turned a potential corporate crisis into an opportunity for humanitarian innovation. They'd inherited their parents' business acumen, but added something we'd often lacked: the wisdom to measure success by impact rather than profit. "There's something else," James added hesitantly. TechCore's quantum division. Their research could complement ours. Instead of competing, we could build something together, I finished, reading his intention. A collaboration instead of an acquisition? Sophia nodded enthusiastically. Their talent combined with our vision. It's not about absorbing or defeating them. It's about creating something greater than the sum of its parts. I studied their faces, seeing the future of not just Nova Digital, but of technological innovation itself. They weren't interested in corporate wars or personal vendettas. They wanted to transform the very nature of competition into cooperation. Nathan approached, his expression thoughtful. TechCore tried to separate our family using the same tactics that once drove us apart. But this generation knows that true power lies in staying connected, Victoria completed, in all ways that matter. As the night deepened over Silicon Valley, I watched my children return to their work, their minds already racing toward the next innovation. They moved in perfect sync, their bond strengthened rather than broken by the day's challenges. My phone lit up with one final message. Emily Chen sharing preliminary designs for the quantum-enhanced community platform. The possibilities were staggering, but they weren't what made me smile. It was seeing how far we'd all come, how completely the next generation had transformed our legacy of competition into a future of collaboration. The California night sparkled with possibility as our family's story continued to evolve. In labs and boardrooms around the world, Nova Digital was becoming something more than a company. It was becoming a testament to the power of choosing connection over division, innovation over competition, love over fear. And that was a legacy worth building. The Dubai sun painted the world's tallest building in shades of gold and promise, as I prepared for my final act as CEO of Nova Digital. Below, the World Technology Summit buzzed with anticipation. Today would mark not just my retirement, but the dawn of a new era in digital innovation. "The transition documents are ready," Marcus announced, his silver hair catching the desert light. "Sophia and James will take their positions as co-CEOs effective midnight Dubai time." I studied the city sprawling beneath my penthouse office, remembering another view from a tiny Brooklyn workspace 25 years ago. From betrayed wife to global tech leader, from seeker of revenge to builder of bridges. My journey had transformed not just me, but an entire industry. "The board is assembling," Sarah reported, "and Alexandra. Nathan and Victoria are asking for a moment before the announcement." They entered together, these two people who had once been the catalyst for my greatest pain and ultimate triumph. Nathan's face was etched with emotion, while Victoria carried herself with quiet grace. "You're really doing it," Nathan said softly. "Stepping down at the height of your success. Not stepping down, I corrected. Stepping forward, into whatever comes next. Victoria touched my arm gently. The children are nervous, not about leading, they've been doing that for years, but about living up to your legacy. I laughed, remembering similar fears from my own early days. They surpassed my legacy long ago. They just don't know it yet. My phone lit up with a message from Emily Chen. Quantum integration complete. Global network ready for the next phase. Your children have built something extraordinary. Indeed, they had. Sophia and James had taken Nova Digital beyond mere technology into a realm of genuine human connection. Their quantum-enhanced platforms were bridging cultural divides, healing community trauma, creating opportunities for millions. The door opened again, revealing my children in their perfectly tailored suits. At 27 and 26, they carried themselves with a confidence I'd never possessed at their age. But today, I caught a glimpse of vulnerability in their eyes. "Mom," Sophia began, "we've been thinking about everything you built, everything you sacrificed, and everything you taught us," James finished. "About turning pain into purpose, competition into collaboration." I led them to the window, showing them the city that had witnessed so many chapters of our story. "Do you know what I see when I look at Dubai? Not the buildings or the technology. I see possibility. The same possibility I once saw in a Brooklyn office, dreaming of proving myself." "But you did more than prove yourself," Nathan said from behind us. "You created something that transcended personal victory." Victoria nodded. "You showed us all that true success isn't about winning or losing, it's about evolution." My phone chimed. Gregory's final message as board chairman. "They're ready. Time to show the world what the next generation can do." The World Technology Summit's main hall fell silent as I took the stage. Thousands of faces looked up expectantly, while millions more watched via quantum-enhanced streams around the globe. 25 years ago, I began, I thought I knew what success looked like. I thought it was about power, about proving wrong those who had underestimated me. I caught Nathan's eye in the front row. I thought it was about revenge. The audience was silent, captivated. Even the desert wind seemed to hold its breath. But true success, I learned, isn't about what we achieve for ourselves. It's about what we build for others. It's about taking our moments of deepest pain and transforming them into opportunities for universal growth. Sophia and James joined me on stage, their presence a testament to how far we'd all come. Today, Nova Digital isn't just a company. It's a bridge between what was and what could be, between competition and collaboration, between past wounds and future healing. I gestured to my children. And so, it is my profound honor to introduce the next chapter of our story. My daughter, Sophia, and her brother James, the leaders who will take Nova Digital beyond technology into the realm of human transformation. The applause was thunderous, but I barely heard it. I was watching Nathan and Victoria embrace our children, their pride untainted by ego or ambition. I was seeing Emily Chen's tears as she watched her protégés step into their destiny. I was feeling the full circle of our journey, from betrayal to redemption, from revenge to renaissance. Later that night, as Dubai's lights rivaled the desert stars, our family gathered in my soon-to-be former office. Sophia and James excitedly shared their vision for Nova Digital's future, while Nathan and Victoria offered insights tempered by experience. "You know," Nathan mused, "when you first built this company, I thought it was about getting even, about showing me what I'd lost." "It was, in the beginning," I admitted. "But then it became about showing myself what I could create, and finally, about showing all of us what we could build together," Victoria finished. My phone lit up one last time. The first official announcement under the new leadership. Nova Digital launches Global Quantum Network for Universal Connection. I watched my children field congratulatory calls from around the world, their natural synchronicity a reminder that the best partnerships transcend blood and history. They had taken everything their parents had fought over and transformed it into a force for global good. "Mom?" Sophia called out. "We'd like you to lead the humanitarian division. Not as CEO, but as someone who knows how to turn vision into reality." James nodded enthusiastically. "After all, you're the one who taught us that true power lies in lifting others up." I looked at my family, Nathan and Victoria, their past mistakes transformed into wisdom. Sophia and James, their inherited legacy transformed into innovation. And myself, my quest for revenge transformed into a mission of connection. "You know," I said softly, "success has many faces. Sometimes it looks like market dominance and corporate victories. Sometimes it looks like personal redemption and healed relationships. And sometimes," Nathan added, "it looks like watching your children become better than you ever dreamed of being." The Dubai night deepened, but our family glowed with its own light, the light of lessons learned, wounds healed, and bridges built. Tomorrow, Sophia and James would begin their era of leadership. Nathan and Victoria would continue their work in community development. And I would step into a new role, not as a seeker of validation, but as a builder of human connection. Up next, you've got 2 more remarkable stories right on your screen. If this one resonated with you, you won't want to miss what's coming. Just click to discover more journeys of transformation. As the stars twinkled over Dubai's spires, I realized that every ending was just a beginning in disguise. My revenge had evolved into redemption, my pain into purpose, my ambition into aspiration for universal good. And that was the greatest success story of all.